I hate sand. It's coarse, rough, gets into everything. Gets down your underwear. It's just not pleasant to deal with. And I get the feeling that we're going to be dealing with a lot of unpleasantness in this episode. But here we are back again, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Back for another exciting episode of The Devil's Due as we continue our philosophical deep dive into the Star Wars films. This feature, we come to Attack of the Clones. But before we get to that, I don't want to say unpleasantness. We'll say unfortunateness. How are you doing, sir?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm all right.
It's been not a great week.
No,
I can imagine for you having to watch this film again.
Yeah.
Some of the other things we're going to discuss in the news. It kind of feels like the week when the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Patriots all win, and you got to deal with their fans and the Bills lose. Kind of like that.
I'm not. No, I don't think so. I think outside of the movie everything is fine. I have, some opinions on some things, but things are what they are. It's okay. I think when we pose the question to people, or please send in your comments and questions and whatnot. Everyone, because we're doing Attack of the Clones, this everyone thinks I'm just gonna go off, and I may, but
I mean, you did with episode 1, and Attack of the Clones is worse.
It is, and we will get all up in that business. But I got it. I don't need to tell you how bad this movie is, because I feel like even among the fandom, they know it's not good. It's the worst of the prequels, and I don't have to. You don't need me to tell you, why and all that business. So I'm gonna lay some stuff on you, and I might have some things that might surprise you, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But I think people expect too much out of me right now. Honestly, my reputation precedes me, dude.
Your rage and hatred are held to a very high standard.
I guess
among
so. Maybe the pandemic is taming me, dude.
Sometimes the beast just wants to be fed, Drew. Sometimes people just want the rage.
I know. I have a gimmick to uphold, I guess.
But until we get to that, sir, how have your
y'all don't want
been?
Y'all don't want Dwayne Johnson. Y'all want The Rock.
We're 1 week late from our normal schedule. Things even in pandemic, folks, things happen and can just kind of gum up the works of the schedule, and that's kind of what happened last week. So here we are this week. So it's been 3 weeks. Then, sir, how have your many weeks been?
I got to tell you, it doesn't feel that long. Carl, things are blending together so weirdly. I don't even. It does not even feel like that long. I just realized I've been out of my office. I have been working from home since. Oh, let me check my timesheet. March 18th. What? It's almost June, dude.
Yeah.
It's weird because it feels like. It doesn't feel like it's been that long, and yet it also feels like it's been forever. Time almost has no meaning anymore.
Yeah, it is. It is eternally day.
Poof, it sure is. The only positives, I'm, you might be surprised that I'm not in a foul mood or whatever right now. God, the weather has been too nice the last couple days for me to be sour right now. So.
Okay. I kind of, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to besmirch good weather, but at the same time, bad weather's good for keeping people inside.
Yeah. I'm not going to lie, though. I've been itching to get outside, and this week has been great because Grant now has a tricycle. And it has an it has a push attachment for the back of it, and has the way the pedals work is I can flip a switch, and he can't steer like he can turn the handlebars, but they don't actually control the front wheel to steer it. So I steer him around by pushing him. And like, dude, I've been going on walks every day just around the neighborhood, and it's honestly like super therapeutic. I've been going out for walks every single day, and it's been a very, very, very good thing for me. So, I've been all right playing a lot of Animal Crossing. I mean, again, every day is kind of the same. So I cook dinner every night. Friday is especially exciting for Grant because it's pizza day. I make
pizza day.
Yeah, I make dough. Like I make the fresh dough on Friday, so he knows what Friday is. So if I'm like, Grant, what's Friday? Do you know what we're gonna have for dinner? And he just gets all psyched up. Dough. Like he gets way into it, man. Like he's all about the mixer and everything. Like it's hilarious. So today was pizza day. So he was excited for the dough. Other than that, it was a rough day on the parenting front. But yeah, that's going to happen when you're stuck in the house with a toddler while you try to work. But we're holding up okay. I'll be honest. I haven't done a ton of interesting things. I've been mixing and recording here and there. The Long Cold Dark record. The mixing aspect especially, I've been really working hard on. So if you like the mix on the new album when it comes out, I worked really hard on it. And if you don't like it, I worked really hard on it, and apparently it wasn't good enough. So either way, know this. I have worked really, really hard on mixing this record to get it to a level where I feel like it's not just good for me, but just like where I think I would say it's good. Like I will stand behind it. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's not there yet, but I cracked the code this week on the drum sound. I feel like the overall drum mix on every track, and I've got it in a place now where I'm like really stoked about it. I think it sounds awesome. So hopefully when it comes out, you'll agree, or at least it'll sound good enough where I could tell you, hey, it might not be, insert your favorite band's favorite album here, good, but it's pretty good for me in my basement. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with what I've accomplished so far, and Animal Crossing, as I said, and I started. I don't think I brought this up a few weeks ago, even though I started a few weeks ago. I finally made a decision and a financial commitment in buying the books to finish Grant Morrison's The Invisibles. So I've got all 4 volumes of The Invisibles upstairs. I finished the first volume this week. I'm into the second volume now. And I remember vividly when I first read the first volume of The Invisibles many years ago, 10-ish maybe years ago. I don't know. And I've been a Grant Morrison fanboy for a long time. But this was like the one work that at the time I read it, it just did not click with me. And I will admit, even reading it now, the first volume, the first like 12-ish issues, I know I get it's weird, and it's hard to kind of sink your teeth into because it's very deep, and it doesn't give you, it expects a lot of you, I guess, as a reader. But once you get past that and into like the 13, like past issue 12 or so, and then you start getting deeper into the character-based issues, and then once the kind of overall plot is more solidified, you just have a more once your understanding is kind of like there, the baseline, it gets really good. So now I'm into volume 2, and it's like, it's great. It's really great. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm in volume 2 of Grant Morrison's The Invisibles. So yeah, fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
How are you?
I'm doing
Sorry,
all
I had to take my last sip.
Say
there.
what?
I had to take my last sip there, and now it's time for number 2.
Number 2.
Seeing as we have to talk about episode 2, it's a 2 for kind of evening.
It's
How are you?
I'm doing all right. but keeping occupied as you mentioned. Let's see. So, still playing a lot of Streets of Rage. I'm going through it on Mania mode right now.
WrestleMania mode?
It could be. And you know how, like, when you're playing a brawler multiplayer, they increase the amount of enemies on screen to compensate for the additional players?
Yes.
So Mania mode is they do that times 2, and you only have 1 extra life.
Mm.
Now, granted, you can earn additional lives at certain score counts, but getting there is a little more difficult when you only have 1 additional life. There are a lot of enemies, so I think I'm on the 4th stage of that, and nary have I gotten through a single stage on the first try.
Mm.
So that's fun. Let's see what else. I have gotten a couple UPS deliveries of some board games because I know at some point we are going to get back to life as we remember it.
Yes.
I know we're going to get back to what we knew as our normal before this, and part of that, Drew, is game nights. So I decided to spend a well-earned Amazon gift card and get some board games.
Yeah.
So we've got today King of Tokyo Dark Edition came.
I've seen this.
It is absolutely gorgeous. I thought it was basically the pictures that you see online and whatnot do not do it justice. It's a really gorgeous game. It's a much more, as the title would indicate, a darker art scheme to it. And the only thing so far that I'm not crazy about is the character boards, the ones you put on little stands and set up on the game table. The background of the character is white.
That seems to fly in the face of the dark theme.
Exactly. It is not. It's too much of a contrast.
Yeah.
Of the art style that they're going for. And the art style they're going for is pretty good. I'm actually going to send you a picture as we speak. Given that I'm in my basement, I'm not sure if it will get to you by the time we're still talking about this. But, so that was King of Tokyo. The other one I got is Empires of the Void 2 by Ryan Lockett, Red Raven Games. The last game you played of his, Drew, was that game Rome?
Yeah. I liked Rome.
Yeah. So this game is a very big, expansive game. This would be if we did this on a game night, it would be the only game we played. The manual is 36 pages long.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
So it's got some stuff to it. Do you remember Unearth?
Should I? Ooh, I have a text message from Carl.
You get the 4 or 5 different dice and you roll them and you place them on a card. You get the different die shape faces, like one's D6, one's D8, one's D4. Then you roll them and you place them on the card that you're trying to take. Well, anyway, I got it.
Oh, hey, look, the picture. I see what you're saying. Yeah. The white. See, the artwork is very high contrast. Like dark with a bright contrasting color. But yeah, that white background does it no favors.
Yeah.
Huh. Odd.
Other than that, the game is fantastic.
Yeah.
I got an expansion for Unearth, which adds a 5th player and some new mechanics. And then I got Clank Legacy, which is in a big honking box. And I'm looking forward to digging into all these once we get out of the quarantine reality we find ourselves in now.
Yeah.
Also, what has found its way into my life is the Lego brick.
I mean, how is it not in your life already, sir?
In the beginning of the quarantine, Julie and I kind of we're like, okay, William is obviously going to get more screen time than he normally does, given our work situation, that he has to be home at the same time that we're working. But at some point, we're just like, okay, we've got to find something else because he's getting way too much screen time right now. So we've got him some track builder sets, and we've started getting him some Lego Star Wars sets. And also just like a standard, like classic Lego blocks set. And he is absolutely loving Lego. Now, granted, most of the Star Wars stuff I'm having to build for him.
Sure.
And you know what, Drew? I've said for years, I'm like, I don't get Lego. Because like there was one time that I took my nephew out shopping for his birthday. And we went to Toys R Us and I asked him what he wanted. He's like, I want the Lego Slave 1 Boba Fett ship.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, fine. So we go over to the Lego aisle.
What does that cost?
Yeah. We'll get to the cost of all this later.
Uh-huh.
I go over there and the Lego Slave 1 ship is not there. I'm like, well, hold on a second. Bring him over to the action figure aisle proper. And there's the Slave 1 toy that you can use with the action figures and whatnot. He didn't want that. He wanted the Lego one. I'm like, but you can actually play with this one and make sure it doesn't break. But he was like, no, I want that. I'm like, okay, fine. But I got him something else. But after building some of these sets, I kind of get it now. Because I'm sitting there, I'm building this stuff. He's helping me out as best he can. Like, I'll put the piece in place. I'll be like, okay, William, push this piece down. He pushes it down. He gets all excited. He's like, I did it. And, like, I kind of get it now. Like, they're just really enjoyable to build and very sturdy to play with. Like, we got him, we've been getting him, like, a lot of the mini sets. Which is like you get a TIE fighter, like a little miniature TIE fighter. It's not their standard TIE fighter Lego kit. It's like it has like maybe 12, 13 pieces to it.
Yeah.
And you can snap it together real easy, no problem. And it gets the point across, TIE fighter. He loves it. And they've got like these little micro fighters, which are like smaller versions of the standard ships. And those are all well and good. They're not outrageously expensive for these sets. I think the most I've paid for one of the smaller sets is like $30. And that was one of the bigger, smaller sets. If that makes any sense. But we've also gotten him two of like the actual like full size sets. One of which being the A-Wing, the Resistance A-Wing, the RZ-2, and the other one being Luke's Landspeeder. Julie built the Landspeeder. I built the RZ-2 A-Wing. And as a building the RZ-2 A-Wing, like, it is incredible how structured these things are, and they are not going to fall apart from standard play. Like, you really have to try to get these things to fall apart.
That's pretty impressive.
It really is. Like, the instructions are very clear. The parts are broken up into different bags. The bags are numbered. It's a very well thought out system.
Now,
like, if I was to give you like a Lego X-Wing and say, you know what, just build this, I think you would get it too.
I mean, I'd have to follow the directions, but you know.
Well, yeah.
I haven't built Legos in quite a while. I mean, I grew up with Legos and I love them to death. But as a kid, like, you know, I would follow the directions with whatever. I mean, I had the generic space sets, right? Because that's what we had back then. There wasn't the licensed, you know, stuff in the way that we have it now. But I mean, I would build whatever they told me how to. But then, I'm not gonna lie, dude. I just had a big box of pieces at a certain point, where, you know, and I just made my own stuff. And I'm not bragging. This is not a, you know, brag or whatever. But I mean, I made cool spaceships from my own memory and my own head, you know, with the pieces I had, and I not for nothing, I thought they were pretty sweet. So I was going to ask you a question. Basically, like with all of the licensed stuff now, are the how many like pieces of these sets are like very proprietary in that they would only be used to build this particular thing?
I think, again, it's just simply based on limits of the imagination. Because, like, my friend Jim, who you know, his son Alexander's huge into Lego. And for one Christmas, I got Alexander the Lego Millennium Falcon because I'm the best godfather in the world. And like he sent to me, he's like, this thing is like a dozen bags and 3 different instruction books. And I laughed about it and whatnot. But he told me like what Alexander will do is when he gets these sets, he'll build the vehicle as it's intended, keep it as it is for some time, but then at some point he would always disassemble it and start to make different stuff with it.
Yeah.
So again, it's only by the limit of your imagination. And even William, after a little bit of playing with the ships as they were constructed, like one of the first sets he got was like a little miniature Hoth set that came with like a little miniature snow speeder. That came with Wedge and a little snow stormtrooper and one of the satellite dish cannons. And the stormtrooper has like a little speeder bike. And after a while, William started, of his own volition, saying like, okay, I want Wedge to have a lightsaber. So he disassembled parts of the speeder bike and assembled like a little makeshift lightsaber to give Wedge. And he did that all his own. And I was like, okay. And then he just does things that he knows drives me crazy by putting the stormtrooper helmet on Wedge and leaving it there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, no, son. No, Wedge is not a stormtrooper. Wedge is one of the greatest pilots of all time. So yeah, you could definitely
put some respect on his name.
Yeah. You can definitely build other things out of these kits.
Cool.
And the specific parts can enable you to build specific things they wouldn't normally be able to do with the generic parts.
All right.
So now I'm kind of like looking at like, well, let's see what else they got out there for Dad to build. So I don't know. We'll see. He's having fun with that. The last thing I got that I've started reading is the Thrawn book.
Okay.
I figured
not the original, the new one, right?
Right. The canon version of the character. It's more or less his origin story. It's written by Timothy Zahn, and I'm about 5 or 6 chapters into it so far, and that's really good so far. I mean, it's Timothy Zahn's the character he created. I'm sure it's going to be great. Love seeing the character in Star Wars Rebels. And just like, I mean, one of the few nice things about not getting weekly comics is now I have time to read other things. And so I finished up the Anthony Daniels book, I Am C3PO.
Yeah.
It's more or less just like his accounting of filming and his experience after the films and whatnot. It was really cool. I learned some things I didn't learn before. Like, apparently, nobody really liked Richard Marquand, the director of Return of the Jedi.
I had heard that.
Yeah. So
does Anthony Daniels also relay the fact that no one really likes Anthony Daniels?
not in so many words.
Okay.
But I mean, he's Anthony Daniels, man. He's C3PO.
Yeah.
He was always telling stories about what it was like shooting the prequels and all the green screen and whatnot, and how they would need to get like a very mundane shot, like in Episode 3 at the end when they're leaving Mustafar and C-3PO's piloting the shuttle, and Obi-Wan is sitting next to him. Instead of just filming Obi-Wan and 3PO sitting next to each other, George wanted to do it digitally. Just splice in, just film Obi-Wan and just splice in 3PO from the day before.
Yeah.
And Anthony Daniels is right there on set.
You see,
it's interesting.
I have notes about that particular thing in episode 2, so we'll talk about that for sure.
Yeah. Also, lastly, really quick, have you been? I'm guessing no, because you didn't seem too keen on it when they announced it. Mm-hmm. Have you been watching the Disney Studios Gallery series about Mandalorian?
No, I have not.
It's really good. It's legitimately like really interesting, and they're pacing it out nicely, breaking up. Each episode's like a half an hour each. This week's episode was about the technology they used for it, the big wall of LCD screens that they created a lot of the environments with.
Yeah.
And that was just really cool to see, because they track it so that it lines up with phalanx, for the technical term. So like it kind of, the wall knows how to shift the scenery accordingly, more or less. It's fascinating. If anything, I would just recommend you watch that episode.
Okay.
And they were talking about, like, there are a couple different roundtables, one with the directors, one with the cast, and then one with the, like, producers and visual effects directors. One of them being John Knoll, who started out on Phantom Menace. And I actually learned, for all the digging and whatnot that we give to it, the Star Wars film with the most miniature and model work was actually the Phantom Menace. And I was very surprised to hear that.
I told you,
like, there's a lot of stuff in that film you think is CG that actually isn't.
But hang on. Well, I did say in our discussion of the Phantom Menace that a lot of these effects held up way better than I thought they would, and I'm telling you, the reason why is because George hadn't committed fully to the CG, everything philosophy yet. And now, meanwhile, we're going to talk about episode 2. Oh boy. Oh boy.
So that we'll I would definitely recommend that. And more and more I hear Dave Filoni talk about Star Wars. More and more I kind of want him running the ship.
Yeah, I don't.
Because
we'll get to that, I guess. Well, do you want to talk about it now? I don't know. There's some announcements with The Mandalorian that I could maybe elaborate on.
No, we're going to talk about Mandalorian in news, but he's very much of both schools.
I get that.
And I think, if they announced Jon Favreau's running Star Wars ship, I'd have no problem with that whatsoever.
That's my best case scenario.
He would be my 1B. Dave Filoni is my 1A. So, but again, we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, coming up shortly, actually. So,
yes. So that has been our weeks, dear listeners.
Legos.
If you like Legos, if you'd like to tell us about your Legos, pizza, and board games, what more do you need out of life or this show? If you would like to tell us about your weeks, reach out to us and communicate with us in any way. Send us questions or comments to be read on the show. Please do so at the following social media locations. You can find us on Twitter and follow us at Devils Do Pod. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/DevilsDoPod. You can email us at thedevilsdopod@gmail.com, or you can find all these resources available to you at our website, thedevilsdopodcast.com. Drew, that being said, we do have some emails.
Excellent.
I'm going to kind of go through these as efficiently as possible, because one of them is kind of a dissertation more than an email.
Uh-oh.
It's got some length to it, but I applaud the enthusiasm.
Okay.
We're going to start out a couple weeks back. We got an email from Mr. J. Gelsomino.
Oh.
Carl and Drew, anything you guys are currently reading comic-wise you'd recommend? Just kind of curious what you fancy lately.
Well,
there's no comics coming out lately.
There's not.
So
read The Invisibles.
Yeah.
It's almost cliche to say, but as I'm reading it, just because I'm a Grant Morrison fan, I'm like, oh yeah, he was on drugs here. when the issues that were clearly influenced by some experiences, shall we say, you'll know it. It's great.
And Jay, based on what I know of your read pile and your to buy pile, maybe now's really not the time to be looking for stuff that's new. Maybe you just kind of eat what's on your plate, sir.
Yeah, Jay and me, my back issue pile is huge, dude.
Just finish what's on your plate first, and then you can.
There's nothing new out anyway, man.
By the time you guys get done with those back issue piles,
comics might still not be back.
I'm willing to say we will be out of warranty because I know how big both your piles are,
dude. Without getting let's get into emails, but like my enthusiasm for comics right now is just not good, and this and the pandemic isn't helping certainly, but I really hope the industry has a plan for replanting itself and getting off on a big, important note. We'll see. Anyway.
Speaking of which, Drew,
yes,
is there any comic book run you'd like to see as a video game? What kind of genre would it be?
Ooh, that's really wow. Interesting question.
Give me the Arkham Asylum video game.
Oh
Not the one we got. Give me the Grant Morrison Arkham Asylum as a video game.
Oh my god! What did I just tell you about drugs, Carl? Wow. That's a crazy question. I feel like you could make a detective game out of like an Ed Brubaker series, like oh my god, like a criminal, a video game in the criminal world, either as a detective game or as a GTA-esque open world with a narrative crime game. I think that would be really, really cool with the Ed Brubaker grit and noir voice to it. That could really be something masterful even.
They kind of already did that. It was called L.A. Noire.
Well, that's what I mean. That? Yeah, I know L.A. Noire, but with Brubaker's particular style and flavor, I think it would be that could be really neat actually. A Invincible. Oh, okay, give me an Invincible video game in the style of the classic arcade beat 'em ups, a la Turtles, a la Simpsons Arcade.
Okay,
that could be colorful and fun. Like
all right,
yeah, that could be cool. And let me try to think. Anything else that would be kind of neat and off the wall, top of my head. Just to stay on brand, Daredevil RPG.
Okay.
Let your mind fill in the blanks. Because I don't know how it would all work exactly, but it felt good to say.
I think an RPG would be a little hard to do because, like, who else do you have in your party, per se?
Danny Rand, the Defenders. No, you bring in the Defenders.
Okay. Works for me.
Stick, Elektra, Typhoid Mary. can have heel and face, heel and face turns along the way, and tell an overarching narrative. Kingpin would be your big bad, obviously. We're not pulling a SquareSoft, Disc 3 Swerve. It's not really the Kingpin. It's this other guy you don't care about. That's the real big boss. No, we're not doing that. We'll keep it.
Daredevil. He's the villain. You're playing Shadowland.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Oh, Carl, why you gotta do me like that? Oh, it hurts.
And Daredevil is replaced by Raiden. Your party.
Oh God. Oh, yeah. No, we're not. I'm not ready to talk about that yet. Okay, cool question.
Okay, so
good question,
Carl. Apparently, in the new Justice League Dark cartoon, King Shark and Constantine were an item. I'm not joking. Which shark in the Jaws franchise do you feel would make the best companion? I gotta say, the mother shark from Jaws 3, very caring, compassionate for young, wanted to kind of get in there and say, how you doing? Stop messing with my kid. So yeah, gonna go with Jaws 3 shark. Jay, thank you very much for your question. Now moving on to Mr. Alan Waiters. Carl and Drew, well, it's quarantine day again. What are top 5 most influential video games during your youth, teen years? Okay, folks.
I've seen this going around. This has been going on.
We've been doing this since 2016, Drew and I. We've been doing this since 2016.
That's hard to believe, actually.
If there's one thing that I think we've established at this point, and Alan, you of all people should know better, is that Drew does not like to do top 5 lists.
I don't like ranking things. It's hard.
Don't ask him to make a list.
I can give you a list, but it's not going to be ranked. It's just going to be things. Like it'll be a number of things in no particular order.
Okay.
But I've seen this. I've actually seen this getting shared around the internets, and I have not participated in it myself, but I have given it an ounce of thought. So say that again. The top 5
most influential video games during your youth/teen years.
Okay. This is tricky in a way, though. Actually, I mean, like this is gonna be so cliche. Like I'm gonna say them, and you're gonna be like, of course. So I'm just gonna say them. Super Metroid, Super Metroid, Castlevania Symphony of the Night, Final Fantasy 3 as I knew it, or 6, those are like the big 3, like, influential wise. Getting into my teen years, I guess. I mean, then you're going to get into I guess I would say I feel like weird not saying Mortal Kombat because God, it like was my obsession in junior high and early high school. The game was everywhere. I mean, it was the game of the 90s, you know what I mean? So I kind of have to say Mortal Kombat, I suppose, even though I really fell out of fighting games as a whole after like Mortal Kombat 3 or 4-ish around that time. But I have to say Mortal Kombat because it did things that other games didn't quite do the same way, and I really dug it. And number 5. I keep wanting to come back to like Metal Gear Solid, like the first Metal Gear Solid, but that doesn't seem right. So Zelda. Specifically Zelda. Link to the Past. That was my favorite Zelda. It still is my favorite Zelda game, and Zelda still has a huge role in my life. For God's sake, Link to the Past is amazing, and obviously Ocarina. Yeah, Ocarina is great. But before there was Ocarina for me as a child, and even into my teenage years, Link to the Past was still my jam. So there you go. There's my 5.
Okay. All right. So my 5 is going to be original Super Mario Brothers. Duh.
Yeah.
Street Fighter 2. Empire Strikes Back on the Atari. Super Dodgeball,
Oh yeah.
and then probably number 5. I want to say Contra.
Contra's amazing.
Contra's great. I want to say Contra. But I'm probably going to go with Spider-Man on the Atari.
Cool.
Not by any measure. Spider-Man Empire Strikes Back are not by any measure good games, air finger quotes, but as far as influential and showing me what games can potentially do.
I think it'd be a worthy discussion on our part at some point. Earliest video game memories.
No, I can tell you my first video game memory.
Put it in your pocket. I think
first time I ever played a video game, I remember it like it was yesterday.
I think this would be a interesting discussion on our part. Let's write that one down.
Yeah. Okay. So, Carl, I know you will go into detail about the Snyder Cut, but many critics will say there are many directors' cuts like the Donner Cut, Daredevil Director's Cut, and other extended cuts. Many people will also point to fans criticizing Sonic's first design before they change it. Do they have a point? Alan, spoilers, we're going to be talking all this in the news.
Yep, stay tuned.
Drew,
yes.
Have you reached a plateau in your weight loss journey? I feel like I'm there.
Yep, it happens, man.
Is there any advice to give to break the plateau? I'm down 30 pounds and want to hit 40 pounds. 30 pounds.
Alan, that's great, dude.
Wants to hit 40 pounds, and then he closes with, keep it up again, gentlemen, and remember to support MAGA, make Alan great again.
Alan, that would imply that you stopped being great at some point, which we know is not true. Alan's always been great.
Facts.
I'm at 21 pounds and holding, and honestly, that's probably where I'm gonna stay. In my back of my mind, I would love to maybe drop like another 5, but I don't need to. I mean, dude, it's Carl. My clothes are falling off of me, dude. It's like I'm wearing pants I haven't worn in like years, and they're big on me. It's kind of bizarre. So I'm kind of where I want to be, but having said that, the plateau is very real. Anyone that's ever tried to do any sort of weight loss knows that you work hard, and you will see results, but you might not be where you want to be, and you're doing the things that have gotten you so far, but then suddenly those things aren't getting you where you want to be. So you plateau. You hit a speed bump, and you feel like you're stuck. I don't have anything specific to tell you. I mean, I'm not a master in this. I can only speak from my own experience, which is as frustrating as so many of you as have experienced, I'm sure, as well. All I can offer is stay true to what you've been doing that has gotten you this far. And if you've gone that far, go a little harder. And I know that, it's easy to say that. It's harder to do it. But the way I try to think about that is when you first started, whatever it is you're doing to get where you want to go, when you finally hit that point where you're like, I got to do something, and you changed whatever habits you had, those first few weeks were brutal. I know when I started, it was in January. Like, yeah, the first couple weeks sucked. Like, sucks. It sucks, cutting your calories down. It sucks, telling yourself 3 to 4 times a week, no, I don't care whatever. I don't care how I feel. I don't care, what day it is. I'm working out or whatever today. And doing it. It sucks. And then eventually, but you do it. And then at a certain point, it stops sucking. It just starts becoming what you do. And then time goes by and you hit that plateau. So all I can offer is, when you hit that plateau, remember how you felt when you started, and remember the work that you put in to get over the hump, and do it again. And it's hard to do, but it got you this far. So if you just go a little harder, you can go further. So that's my best advice to you. Just remember how you got where you are and go a little further. Does that make sense?
My advice would be steroids, but that's just
Remember, kids, even on steroids, you still got to put the work in. They're not magic. They help. They help. But you still have to do the work.
All right. Alan, thank you very much for your email as always. Now moving on to Mr. Cyrus Moore.
Hello, sir.
Be a long one, but let's get into it.
All right.
Reserve comments until I've finished. Gentlemen, hope you are well. Last week during your discussion on Phantom Menace, you were looking at ideas to help fix the movie or at least make it better. A couple quick ones I had were move the trade dispute subplot and replace it with well-funded, organized terrorists. Group had remove the trade dispute subplot and replace it with well-funded and organized terrorist group that is rebelling against what they call Republic tyranny. Obviously, Palpatine is pulling the strings, and the Republic always seems 2 steps behind when dealing with the threat. Granted, the rebel terrorists are a mirror of the original trilogy, but it's like poetry. It rhymes.
Oh, I see what he did there.
In episodes 2 and 3, I think there needs to be a bigger emphasis on the morality of the creation of the clones. Perhaps Anakin really struggles with Jedi support of the artificial creation of human beings and the complete disregard of their lives. Anyway, it's just a couple ideas. There's probably 100 more that we could be here for days. There's actually something positive about the prequels that I want to talk about really quickly. Prequels do something that the new trilogy doesn't do at all, and the original trilogy did, but not much of. They world build. Instead of in Episode 7, the Republic was created after Episode 6. The First Order came from somewhere, and our protagonist is someone. The prequels take the time to set up the world and motivations behind the characters. Sure, some of it is boring, but it's also real. The world is absolutely there would absolutely be trade disputes in galactic trade. It reminds me of when George R. Martin mentions at the end of Lord of the Rings books, where it reads Aragorn became king and ruled for 100 years. Martin wonders what was his tax policy. Okay, yeah, I was that paragraph kind of threw me there because I was like, Martin didn't write the Lord of the Rings. So, no, but let me read that again. It reminds me of when George R. R. Martin mentions that at the end of the Lord of the Rings books, where it reads Aragorn became king and ruled for 100 years, Martin wonders what was his tax policy. I've rambled on long enough. You two take care, and I'll catch you next time.
All right. That's a good point regarding the world building or lack thereof in the sequel trilogy versus the prequel trilogy, and that's a valid point. But at the end of the day, execution matters. I still have to be able to enjoy the movie, as it were, and George made sure that I didn't. So, but that is a good point. I will not disagree with that. Actually, that's a good point.
Okay, all right. That does it for our email questions. Appreciate it as always, everyone, for participating in the show. Moving on to our news. So we've got 3 things I think are going to take a lot of conversation time with us. And then there's one thing that bears mentioning, but because of the scope of the other 3 things, I kind of want to gloss over it. And I don't want to make it seem like I'm being insensitive to any gender or sexual orientation. But it's just we've got bigger things to talk about. And Drew doesn't watch these shows, so we're not going to spend a ton of time with this.
Okay. Plus, we're 50 minutes into the show, and we still want to talk about Attack of the Clones at some point.
Right. So, well, these episodes are longer.
Then again, do we want to talk about Attack of the Clones at some point?
Yeah. We're just going to keep pushing it off. Let's talk about the holiday special.
I'd rather.
Okay,
I'd rather.
So, the star of the CW Batwoman series, Ruby Rose, announced she is leaving the show prior to season 2. This is obviously a big surprise on the surface. You don't normally hear something like this. These CW shows, the DC shows, are fantastic. They've been doing for years now on television, or Marvel has been doing in theaters. And to hear that the star of one wants out after one season, it's very surprising. You read a little more into it, it seems that from some sources, being number one on the call sheet, maybe a little more than she expected, and that the parting was a mutually agreed upon decision. So, any quick thoughts on that?
I was surprised, given that the show seems to be doing well, and her casting was sort of a big deal. But I know she also got hurt on set. Now, I from what I've heard, that wasn't the motivating factor in her leaving. It was more of a scheduling kind of thing, where she just felt like this was taking a lot more out of her than she anticipated. Hey, look, it's her decision, and if it's too much for her to handle, then hey, have a nice day. Life is life is short, folks, and if you're doing something that you don't want to do and you don't have to, don't do it. That's all I can really offer. I'm in no place to judge anybody involved in the situation. If she felt like it was more than she could handle, then for her own sake, do what you got to do.
Right. And obviously, when she was originally cast, there was a lot of blowback because of her decision. I believe some of it from the LGBT community saying every community is going to have people that you kind of wish weren't there.
Yeah.
As geek fandom, we know this all well and are going to talk about it momentarily.
Yeah.
But possibly some of that could have been a contributing factor. I know.
That's a little.
Obviously,
I don't know. How many? Never mind. It's not my place to say necessarily. For that particular community, I can't speak for anyone involved. But I just.
Neither can
I. I don't know.
Yeah.
Regardless,
it is what it is.
If it does her well to no longer be involved, then good for her. Do what you got to do in life to make yourself happy.
Right. So moving on to our next bit of news. As you know, Drew and I are fans of fighting games. I would argue me a little more so.
These days, yes.
I think that's fair to say, yeah. And guest characters in fighting games have become a time-honored tradition, whether it be characters from other properties that the company producing the fighting game owns, i.e. the Marvel vs. Capcom series or the Soul Calibur series, things like that. I can safely say the Mortal Kombat series has taken the guest character thing to a whole new level of who they've brought in, especially over the past 3 games. But Drew, an argument can be made that they've reached the zenith, the apex of the mountain, that no higher goal can be achieved, because Drew, coming to Mortal Kombat 11, it's the future of law enforcement.
The future is now,
part
Carl.
Man, part machine, all cop. RoboCop has been announced as a guest character in Mortal Kombat 11. And Drew, not only is RoboCop going to be in Mortal Kombat 11, but RoboCop, voiced by RoboCop himself, Peter Weller.
Yeah, that's wow. I said Mortal Kombat is one of my, formative gaming experiences. I still have a love for that lore, and the original lore, that is. And those original games, they have a huge place in my heart, man. And RoboCop in that is just, it's insane to me. It's just wild. I saw that reveal trailer, and wow. And Peter Weller doing it. What a time to be alive. I'll be honest. if he's on board to do that, then get on this movie before the man leaves this plane to voice RoboCop in the new movie, please. Please? Pretty please?
Yeah. And not only is it his voice, but they released a gameplay trailer yesterday, and they've got the X-ray moves
Yeah.
in Mortal Kombat now. And when they do the X-ray moves on RoboCop, you see his face behind the shield.
Oh, wow. So it's Peter Weller's face?
Peter Weller.
That's
Yep.
awesome. It's so cool. My only like hiccup with the guest character thing.
He brought Ed with him.
Oh God, did he?
He's got Ed 09 with him. Did you watch the trailer?
I watched like the initial trailer, and I think he shot a guy in the crotch, and I was like, "Yep, this is okay. They're doing it right." I only have one hang up with the licensed guest character thing, and that is that like, if the contract expires, that no longer like that part of the game can get extracted or no longer is able to be released and stuff like that. So it does get a little. We talked about this with like soundtracks and things like that in the past. Like if you try to play like a GTA game now, it's not going to be the GTA game that you remember because they can't release the music as it, licensing deals. And I think the Tony Hawk games actually. I don't care. Spoilers. They're doing that Tony Hawk remaster or whatever. I don't care, but people care. They can't use all the music that you remember from that game because of licensing issues and all that. So that's kind of a bummer. That does kind of gum up the works a little bit with this Mortal Kombat stuff. But man, RoboCop in a Mortal Kombat game, like, sure.
He uses the Cobra gun. He uses the data spike.
I have to say, I did see like he's got like 12 different skins in the game. Like different costumes or outfits or whatever. Carl, not one of them, not one is of the new movie redesign. just so you know this.
Is one of them the jetpack?
That I don't know. But not one of the head skins that I saw was of the black armor suit from the new RoboCop movie that no one remembers. Except for me, because me and Jay went to see it in the theater.
Rightfully so. Okay, so
we weren't mad, just disappointed.
Yeah. So that's great news. Moving on, and it's kind of funny, Drew. We live in this time where surprises in pop culture and media are very few and far between, and the opportunity to truly surprise an audience seems harder and harder to do nowadays. Just because we know so much stuff going into something. Whether it be through trailers, news stories, what have you. Which is part of what made the first season of The Mandalorian so great. Is that they made the decision to hold back all the product of the child so that it would not be spoiled. And when that child shows up on the screen, you are truly surprised.
Yes.
And a lot of what happens in that first season, I've just got done rewatching it again. It's so good. And I really, really want a coffee table book of the production stills that they show at the end of each episode. But because we got 2 trailers, and that was pretty much it. And the trailers showed basically very little of what the actual story was. And that is part of what made the first season so great. And I think they're kind of forgetting that lesson this time around with season 2. Because we are finding out so much about Mandalorian season 2 going into it. I don't understand. I think it's one of 2 things. One, I think it's because of like union rules and whatnot that these actors have to show up on a cast sheet for something that gets filed or something. So it all comes out eventually, and they just decide to make an official announcement. If that's that, okay, fine. You got to abide by union laws and whatnot. The other thing is, like, they think they need to sell the show, which I don't understand. If you have the buy-in to this show that you have with season 1, with as little information as you have, why do you think you need to sell more and give away more in preparation of season 2? And what I'm referring to is, we've learned that I believe the actor's name is Tamua Morrison.
Yes, sir.
Who played Jango Fett in episode 2 and played the clones. Is going to be in Mandalorian season 2.
Right.
Most likely as Boba Fett. We know that Boba Fett is coming back. Well, yeah, we're
hold on.
So we have all but confirmed that Rosario Dawson is playing Ahsoka Tano. It has been officially confirmed that Katie Sackhoff is playing Bo-Katan, which is still awesome because that's the character she voiced in the series.
I'm all about.
We're getting more Katie Sackhoff.
I am 100% team Katie Sackhoff.
And now we're learning that Timothy Olyphant is in it, and he's going to be wearing the Boba Fett armor. So
yeah, there's a lot of information with what you just put out there. There is too much, and so okay, like you said, we didn't know a lot about the Mandalorian going in, and that kind of made the show itself that much better watching it. Because it revealed itself to us, and like it just was like, wow, this I did not expect any of this in a way, you know? Like, why not do that again? I'm with you where I don't. Why are you showing your hand this early? Now, here's the thing. There's two ways to look at that. If they're showing their hand this early with that much information, what aren't they showing us? What aren't they telling us that's going to potentially blow our minds, right? I mean, is that a valid question?
Fair. That is fair, yes.
However, there is another effect that this information can have, and I'm going to throw this at you, and this is, I could be just old man yells at cloud. Fair enough. Carl, all the stuff you just talked about, this person is playing this person. This person is playing this person. Carl, I don't know who those people are that they're playing, and I don't care. And this is my concern about Dave Filoni. And this was even as cool as it was watching Giancarlo Esposito in The Mandalorian Season 1, when the Black Saber thing came out, all I knew about that was that it was from a cartoon, and that cartoon fans probably lost their minds when that happened. But a little itty-bitty red flag went up in my head going, okay, well, we're bringing the cartoon stuff into this. Now I feel like I got to do homework, and that's not what I'm here for. And now in Season 2, we have more of cartoon crap coming into this, and I feel like, okay, that's great for the embedded fan base of people who are already way too invested in this. I'm over here just trying to, enjoy Star Wars the way I used to enjoy Star Wars. I don't want to have to do homework. I don't want this to turn into Dave Filoni's dumping ground for cartoon stuff, and that's what it's turning into. And you're losing me a little bit, and I really liked the first season, and now I have concerns about Season 2. That's my flip side of this.
To respond to that, all reports indicate that, Bo-Katan and Ahsoka are one episode only.
All right.
And it's probably going to be a flashback episode telling how Gideon came into possession of the Darksaber.
Okay.
And if
that's all it is, good.
And I think Ahsoka Tano is one of the best Star Wars characters created since the original trilogy. She is an incredibly fleshed out and deep character. She's been well done everything she's appeared in. I think she's a great character, and I know I've watched all the shows, so I know about her, and I still don't want her as a regular part of this show. Like, if you want to do one episode flashback and show her and show Bo-Katan, I'm all for that. But I don't want them to be reoccurring parts.
Yeah.
And
I guess my big fear is, like, the show is called The Mandalorian. Let's keep this on track here. Like,
right.
It's his show, remember?
And we come to a part where, you know, we have a difference of philosophy here, whereas, especially when it comes to Star Wars, where someone can tell you, I have this good story and you should partake in. And the package of the story will tend to dictate whether you partake in it as opposed to whether I partake in it. Like, if someone says to you, I have this fantastic Star Wars story, but it's in a cartoon series, I'm like, okay, let me watch. You tend to not care because it's a cartoon series.
Yeah, that's right.
And now
Star Wars is a series of movies, my friend.
But it's not. It's not.
Oh, but it is.
To think it's just a series of movies is just kind of naive now. It's grown so far beyond that.
No, hang on. You're right.
You may not
you're right
want
that
to
it has.
admit it,
No, you're right. It has. I just don't have to care about that stuff. The core of it is always the movies. They're what matters. Everything else is everything else. And they can jettison everything else with a snap of their fingers if they want to. But the movies are what people generally care about.
Now we're starting to see with Disney Plus and what they're able to do that those lines are becoming very blurred. And it's now becoming more than just the movies.
Well.
So I'm all for that. I know you're not. To each their own. And we move on.
Yeah.
Still
looking forward to Mando Season 2.
Of course. It's more Mando!
Give me
gain
more.
another 30 pounds on scenery he's eating.
Oh, you know what? He's earned it. Let Carl Weathers eat the scenery. Let the man chew it.
Let him do it.
Savor it, Carl.
Okay. Yeah. So that brings us to our main event news story of the week.
I have less to say about this than you think.
So it was announced this week that in 2021, the Zack Snyder edit of Justice League will be premiering on HBO Max. Rumors are that it's going to be a 3 to 4 part series broken up. The original Snyder Cut was rumored to be about 4 hours. Warner Brothers is going to be spending about $20 to $30 million to finish this thing.
Oh God! Imagine a world where you spend $30 million on a movie that already flopped.
I don't think you can necessarily
What
call
is that? What Hollywood? Hollywood, baby. Hollywood. Oh my God. I don't get it. Whatever. Hey, I'm sure all the hashtag release the Snyder Cut fanboys out there are they're celebrating in the streets right now if they could, which they can't, but whatever. Then again, they're probably storming state capitals as well. So, you know, yeah, they probably are celebrating in the streets because they're largely the same people. Good for them. Good for Zack Snyder and his vision and all that business. Look, I don't really care. But again, the Snyder Cut implies that he was unceremoniously removed from the film and yada yada. And I don't know if that's really the case. There's a lot that went into how the movie ended up the way it ended up. Tragedy is involved. I don't know. It's you're never gonna know who did what to who, when, and why, right? Like that information is never gonna get revealed.
Right.
All I'm saying is, like, if it costs another $30 million, the Snyder Cut, like we said before, didn't exist. There was footage, yes. There was what he shot, but it was incomplete. It wasn't the full picture. There were no effects, no music. Scenes are missing, yada yada. Like the list goes on. So what you are going to get is whatever they're going to finish off is going to be Zack Snyder's vision, but like it doesn't invalidate the fact that what the Snyder Cut or whatever existed before. No, it didn't really. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, $30 million. That's a John Wick movie.
Yeah, like
that's a whole nother movie budget.
Yeah, I don't. And for what? To sell your streaming service? Like, I got to be honest with you, Carl. Are there? This is their big ace in the hole for this streaming service. Like, are there that many people that morbidly curious for the Snyder Cut? Like, are there that many people out there with their pitchforks and everything ready that demand to see the grim, dark, miserable Murderverse version of the Justice League that Warner Brothers felt it necessary to do this? Like, is this going to make them that much money, that much more money to get butts and seats or subscriptions or whatever to this deceptively named streaming service? I don't know. It's just weird to me. It's weird to me, and I think you're rewarding people for bad behavior. I think you're giving bad people a bone, and I don't think those people deserve that bone. So that's my kind of take on the whole thing.
So I've thought about this a lot. There's there's two angles I'm looking at this from. One angle is this. On this show, we have always touted the importance of the artist's vision.
Yes, true.
Influence on the product. So, based on all reports, and again, like you said, the 100% truth is never going to be able to be known. That's fine. Based on all the reports we have, Snyder left the project because his daughter committed suicide. No right-minded individual who is, especially anyone who's ever been a parent, would be able to conceive of continuing work of any kind under those circumstances. So he stepped away to be with his family. It's the right thing to do. Warner Brothers decided to finish it with Joss Whedon. Okay, fine. This opportunity now presents itself. There's a new streaming service coming out. AT&T wants to promote it properly, and they got to fight with the 800-pound elephant in the room and the two 400-pound elephants in the room, Disney Plus, Netflix, and Amazon Prime. So they've got to have big guns firing right out the gate. And Friends is great. I like Friends.
A lot of people like Friends.
Friends is not that big gun. I'm not going to get a streaming service for Friends. You know why?
You're not.
Because I can get basic cable, and which is cheaper, and turn on any channel at any given time. And if I'm not watching an episode of Friends, I'll be watching an episode of Seinfeld. If I'm not watching an episode of Seinfeld, I'll be watching an episode of Simpsons.
I'm not going to lie, Carl. I hear you, but you're underestimating those Friends people.
If I wait a half an hour, I'm sure I'll get an episode of Friends. So, okay. So the opportunity for him to come back, finish what he started as an artist, to put his vision on the screen, I'm all for. That's great. If you get to come back to this thing after this unspeakable tragedy of your life and finish what you started, fine. Great. I am not a fan of Zack Snyder's interpretation of these characters. I feel he lacks a basic grasp of the core of these characters.
That's
And
putting it lightly.
everything that he does spins out from that he doesn't understand the basic core of the characters. But again, as we've said numerous times, these characters through different years have been handled by different artists and different writer in the books. We don't always agree or like what an artist or writer is doing, so we just choose not to consume that product. You and I went and saw Justice League in theaters,
Yep.
and we said, for as bad as what, it has moments where you kind of like, if you just turned into this a little more, if you just done this a little more, this could have been a whole different thing.
But we don't know who did those moments. But
right.
I could guess that they weren't Zack Snyder.
So, but if from purely taking it from the perspective of an artist, I'm glad that he gets to go back and finish his work. Director's cuts are nothing new. We've had director's cuts for movies we can't stand. We've had director's cuts for movies that we love. And from what I understand, there have been 63 director's cuts of Blade Runner.
That's not wrong.
So, and I've never seen Blade Runner because I don't know which version to watch.
That's a valid reason for not watching Blade Runner.
So, okay, so this is nothing new. Fine. There's that. My concern is and you alluded to this, is in the precedent this sets.
Yep.
Very vocal minority, and folks, don't fool yourself. It was a very minor minority, but they were very, very loud. Of the, I'm not going to say all of them, because I don't believe in generalizing like that, so I can't back up a general statement like that, but a good chunk of them were people you would not normally want to hang out with. You know, the worst, think of it. You know what I'm talking about. I don't have to go into it. You're giving them what they want. Why are they going to stop there?
Right.
What are we going to hear next?
Release the Ayer cut is already on Twitter for Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Look,
so
and Carl, if I may, I'll let you. I'm just have these. You're petitioning for more of something that's A, stunk, and B, did poorly. Like, why? Why are you asking for all this? Reeks of, to me, is these people had it in their minds that this thing that they wanted was already unimpeachable. And then it came out, and it was very impeachable, and they can't accept that. Therefore, there must be some reason, some ulterior motive, some insidious intrusion that caused the thing to be poor and bad and unlikable. Therefore, we're going to demand that we get the Snyder cut, the Ayer cut. That is the pure version, and that will show everyone that they're wrong about this thing that I already had my mind made up was going to be great, but then it wasn't, but I can't accept that it wasn't, therefore I must double down and demand this other ulterior version of the thing to validate my already made up opinion. Come on, man. Right. Come on. Live in reality.
I agree with that. I can't get behind the statement that it failed financially because it didn't. It made money. It didn't make Avengers Endgame money, but it made $700 million worldwide. So I'm sorry, those are factual numbers we can't argue with. You know, the DC films, for as bad as they have been,
they've all made more money than that, though.
They've all made money.
Yes, but they've all made more money than that.
Okay, it made profit.
That's fair. It profited, but
but again, going back to like the dangerous precedence, the sense, and I was listening to the Kevin Smith podcast, Fat Man Beyond, and Mark Bernard is on that. And don't get me wrong, I love Kevin Smith. I love his passion about things, even though I don't always agree with it. And Kevin Smith is all for this, and that's great. Something Mark Bernard said in the podcast, they really kind of stuck with me, and it's something I really appreciated. I actually wrote down, I'm going to read it right now. His quote is, I think the thing I've come to learn about being a fandom in general, is that sometimes, most times, almost every time, it's better if we don't get what we want, because that is not what being a fan of things is about. It's not about being a consumer. It's not what being a consumer of art is about. We don't get to dictate the art we get. We get to receive the art that we get. And even when there is something we love and have devoted time, energy, and passion to, we need to reserve the right to be surprised by it, and giving us what we need and what we expect is never the path to being surprised by things.
No, I heard that quote as well today on Fat Man, and I definitely skew more Mark than Kev, and I love Kev, but Mark is like my spirit animal.
Yeah.
And that is well put on his part. That, like, at what point are the fans just going to be dictating to the studios what to make? You know what I mean?
Right, and that's when you run into the problem of the old sports adage: if you listen to the fans, you end up sitting with them. That's
good.
I don't want to set that precedent. That being said, before we move on and finish up the news cycle here, Disney, maybe want to give us a version of Rise of Skywalker that maybe makes some more sense.
Ship has sailed, my friend, and I
would not besmirch you. I would not besmirch you.
I think when we wrap up our Star Wars retrospective, perhaps it might be worth discussing what do you do with this now? Well, just put that up, just putting that out there.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the news.
There's the news.
We're
at the 120 mark, folks. Let's talk about Attack of the Clones.
We give you value.
You're getting a lot of value in this podcast.
So, Attack of the Clones, released 2002, I believe.
I don't know. Who cares?
Set 10 years after Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Expectations were high going into this, obviously, as with any Star Wars sequel.
Were they?
Yes.
I don't know.
I remember.
I was scared. I was afraid.
There was a lot of that.
Especially, do you remember? Hang on. Do you remember when they announced the title of the movie?
Yeah.
And we were all like, because when they announced The Phantom Menace as the title of Episode 1, we all kind of went, what? The what? That's dumb. And, you know, we shrugged it off because new Star Wars Episode 1. Then we saw the movie, and we were like, oh. Okay. Let's see what 2 does. And then, you know, we saw the announcement of the 2 title, and we were like, oh. Attack of the Clones. That's terrible.
That's
awful.
The title of the prequels, along with the titles of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, for that point, are very indicative of one of their key inspirations, and that is Saturday morning serials. That's something that's been a very heavy influence on George throughout his creative life.
Yeah.
They're not the best titles in the world, but I get what he's trying to do with them. So, yeah, it's called Attack the Clones. It's not the best title in the world.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
But if you just look at, if you look at, I know this is near impossible to do. If you separate the title from the film, if you just look at the title as a title, and you put Attack of the Clones next to Empire Strikes Back, they have the same feel to them. They have the same dramatic intent structure to them.
Yeah. But Empire just sounds cooler.
Okay.
Put it this way. We know what the Empire is. Therefore, we know that it is striking back.
We know what clones are, Drew. Believe me, I was a Spider-Man fan in the 90s. I know what clones are, Drew.
In the Star Wars context, though, we don't. So it was kind of like, oh, who are the clones? Why are they attacking? What? It's clunky. I don't have a frame of reference outside of a line of dialogue from episode 4. What?
So
again, coming back to what I said about episode 1 and a lot of the exposition we got in that film, what's happening? Why? Who are these people? Trade disputes? By who? For what? What's going on? No one's telling me. Who are the clones? At least they tell us what the clones are. But up to the title reveal, we had no context at all. Okay, go on. Go.
Remember when I was pitching the idea of doing these episodes to you, and I said I didn't want the prequel episodes to be just crapping on them?
I know.
Because that's going to be like everything else that's on the internet about the prequels.
I have my notes. I will post those notes on our Facebook page. Though my episode 1 notes got some traction on our Facebook page, by the way, and I thank you all for that.
They did, and I will not lie and say I didn't chuckle while reading them myself.
I don't know that my 2 notes are as good, but I have notes.
So I remember hearing that this one would be set 10 years after the original, and I was just like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And I think and we discussed this in last episode with episode 1.
They should have just started here.
They really should have. This should have been episode 1. Like, it's too far removed.
It's got nothing to do with the
3.
Yeah, right.
But there's no connections to episode 1. When you look at the original trilogy, Star Wars is a self-contained story. Yes, slight little cliffhanger at the end to maybe for a sequel, but it's ultimately self-contained.
Let me tell you what.
But by the time you get to Empire, it's still close enough to Star Wars that you still know who these characters are. Granted, they've gone through some changes in their dynamic and whatnot, but you still know who the characters are. In episode 2, we have to get to know Anakin all over again.
Yeah, and Obi-Wan for that matter, like,
right,
and Amidala for that matter. Like, she's not the queen anymore, and to be fair, none of these people had characterizations that are worth anything outside of their physical description in the first movie. Now we have to get to know them all over again. It just seems like a giant waste of time. And here's where I might surprise you, Carl. It didn't have to be that way because there is stuff in this movie that I heard and saw and was kind of like, oh, they could have done that better. They should have steered into that more. There is connective tissue in 1 and 2, but it's not with any of our principal characters that we care about or are supposed to care about. It's all ancillary and with background characters and things that we don't see or really care about.
Example.
Well, the biggest example, I don't want to just go through the plot and the notes and all that because it's going to get. Yeah, I'll post the notes. Trust me, and the notes are basically in order of the film, so you'll be fine. I guess one of the things that stuck out to me, I really should have pointed out in my notes what was good and what was bad, even though the bad would outweigh the good. I just for the discussion's sake. Okay, Count Dooku, right?
Right.
Count Dooku, to be fair, is an interesting character. I can't believe I'm saying that, but he is an interesting character. Okay,
Well, you got Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee automatically brings gravitas to the role. Now, here's the thing. Here's my notes. Dooku is interesting. He's a liar who tells Obi-Wan the truth. Not the entire truth, but enough of the truth. And that is interesting because Obi-Wan doesn't want to believe him about the true nature of the Sith infiltrating the Senate and whatnot. Obi-Wan can't believe that. Like he can't fathom that would be the case. But Dooku's not lying to him. He's telling him the truth. That's an interesting angle. And on top of that, Dooku relays that he was Qui-Gon's master. That is kind of interesting. Okay, let's maybe elaborate on that. Maybe we get some dirt on Qui-Gon. Maybe we kind of pull that back into Obi-Wan's story in some capacity. Maybe we get some, maybe Obi-Wan learns some kind of lesson in that his mastering Qui-Gon learned something from Dooku, and then Dooku maybe clarifies the lesson back to Obi-Wan. Something like that. There is something there that is mentioned and glossed over and forgotten completely by these prequels. But that's an example of something that's like, oh, okay, hang on, wait, there might be something cool here. Nope, it's gone. Because as we see we're going to talk about 3 when we next episode, but man, they get rid of Dooku real quick, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. Dooku is a really interesting character. He's a good character, I'll go so far as say. The problem I feel in introducing a strong villain in these films that is not Palpatine is that you're ultimately still trying to tell the story of Anakin's fall to the dark side. And whereas those kind of secondary villain characters can be used in that respect, unfortunately they amount to be little more than needed punching bags for the heroes. In the films anyway.
That's what they turn into. And that's a shame. Shouldn't be that way. Like, I said it in the first movie. Darth Maul deserved better. Like, you're going to introduce this guy. People clearly were into him. And then, oh, he's gone. Oh, okay. Bye. Like, come on, man. It's okay to set up these guys as something and not dispatch them with total just shrug of the shoulders. Like, especially with Dooku, because there clearly was meat on those bones. And here he is, and then he's gone.
Yeah. And also, and again, this goes back to our discussions of episode 5 and episode 6 and special editions. We've got more Boba Fett. Or as one could say, Proto-Fett.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody was so thrilled when they saw the armor and everything. I was just kind of like, really? But, that being said, to know that, he's essentially what stormtroopers originally were.
That's dumb. Kind of interesting. No, it's not. That's stupid.
Give me a reason why it's stupid.
It's just another example of everybody knows everybody. We talk about this all the time. We have this vast universe. And, of course, all the clone troopers were based on the dad of Boba Fett. Of course they are. Couldn't just be some guy. Couldn't just be, some super buff dude that the Kamino people who are super mysterious happen to, know about or whatever. No, it's this guy that has connective tissue to a guy we know. Oh, okay. And then this guy also happens, he has a strange request. He wants an unaltered clone for himself as his son. Of course he does, because, otherwise, how would Boba Fett come to be, right? There's no character reason that we're given why he would want such a thing. Like, it's just a thing that has to happen. So George wrote it down like, Jango Fett should have an unaltered clone that's Boba Fett. And that way Boba Fett can be in the movies and in the new movie. Oh my god. Like, I'm sure that's as much thought as went into this. It just makes everything feel smaller. Makes everything feel smaller and dumber. It doesn't need to be. I digress. That's why.
Well, first off, I doubt very much you digress, but because we're still early into this.
We're still going.
Smaller, yes. Dumber, not necessarily. Because I think when you do this, you alleviate yourself from a lot of having to flush out who, if you don't make it this character, if you make it just like a random character. And again, I agree with you. There's too much interconnection in these films. I totally agree with you. But if you just make it like some random character that the Kaminoans are using to create these clones from, then you got to go in and flesh out who this character is. You're taking time away from your main story.
No, you don't. It doesn't matter. They're cannon fodder. It doesn't matter who they are.
Drew, I will counter this to you right now. If they had done that, you personally would say that not letting us know who this person is stupid.
They're just clones. They're just bodies to throw at a situation. They're as disposable as the droid army.
I knowing how you interpret things, knowing how you typically read things, if they had done that, you would have said it. They wouldn't have been able to win in that situation. You would have said,
it doesn't matter who they are. They're just clones. It doesn't matter who they are. They're completely inconsequential.
We'll move on.
They don't matter.
So, we've got Jango Fett. We start to really see in this film we saw it a little bit in the previous film. We get to see in this film the arrogance of the Jedi, especially the Jedi Council, just being kind of blind to what's going on around them.
Yeah.
That's one thing I think was a very interesting thing they did with the story, was to show that the Jedi being presented is not what you expected.
No, the worst.
Something I really enjoyed in these three films.
Yeah, I did.
How they, and again, it's touched on, and they sum it up nicely in Last Skywalker, or Last Jedi. Their legacy is arrogance and failure and mistakes, and that's not wrong, and that's shown that.
That's not wrong. But the Last Jedi is also a reaction to these movies. Didn't have to be that way.
Right. So I like how the Jedi are portrayed in these films, because
Really? Okay, I mean, all right. You liked how the Jedi were portrayed in these films? I mean, that's a take, man. I think they looked incompetent and stupid at every turn. Even ones we're supposed to like Yoda. Like, we like Yoda. They turned him into an idiot. It's painful. A story, yeah. Go on. Sorry. Notes will be posted.
So, I think to an extent you have to do that to Yoda. because it makes the character that we were originally introduced to more fuller. In Empire Strikes Back, he makes the line, as you mentioned when we did that episode, my own counsel I keep in who is to be trained. And we see the council here dictating who should be trained and who should not be trained. And in order to get, I think George was smart enough to know, in order to make the Yoda that we have in episode 5 and 6 believable, we have to see where he's come as a character. And even as old as he is and experienced he is, we can't believe that he is infallible. And we definitely see his flaws throughout these films. We see an arrogance to him throughout these films and the other Jedi. And so that's part of why I like how they were portrayed in this, because, they're originally described as simply as peacekeepers. I could definitely say that, the portrayal of them being directly a part of a functioning government was probably not the smartest choice, but it works in the story that you're trying to tell. So everything in this film is kind of starting to push forward as far as the grander story of the, what is going on as far as what Palpatine is manipulating and things that are going on behind the scenes. I think, obviously, where this film just falls flat on its face, and the biggest problem with the film is the love story.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's one of the areas where I was going to surprise you. There is a plot in here that is interesting, or at least could be interesting, except it's not the plot that's central to the movie. The love story is the forefront, and it's terrible. These characters do not and should not be in love with each other. They have no reason, zero reason, to fall in love with each other at all. The side story, or at least the background story, of the clone army being initiated X amount of years prior to the events, all of that, the machinations in the Senate to get Palpatine, empowered, and all of that, like all of the cloak and dagger, that is the interesting part of the movie and the story, and that stuff is in the background. At the foreground is Amidala, and they're going to assassinate her. Like, why? Why is she so important? Like, how someone else couldn't voice the same concerns that she could? Someone else couldn't call for a vote of no confidence or whatever? I mean, what? Like, it's the way it is because the plot because George's love story demands it. That's all. That's the only reason why. It's very dumb. And Anakin and her falling in love based on the events and their characterizations in this film is the least believable thing I have ever seen. I don't need to reiterate, what you already know, but my God, he is terrible in this movie. Anakin is an insufferable person in this movie. She has no reason to fall for this guy. None whatsoever, except that George demanded that in the script that had happened. It makes no sense, dude. He's terrible.
Right. The main problem with the love scenes is that there's nothing else for them to do.
No, they don't do anything. They hide out on Naboo, doing nothing for that's the oh man. The other, I made a note of this as well. There's too many plots in this movie. There's the whole assassination thing, and then they have to go hide out on Naboo, and then they're doing that, and then out of nowhere, it's like, oh wait, we have to go to Tatooine. Like, wait, what are you doing over here now? Slow down, bro. Like, this movie has way too much going on, and yet nothing really going on. Like, it's. Am I wrong in that? Like, that whole Tatooine diversion for his mom was like completely. That's like a whole. That could be a whole other movie. Honest to God, that there. If we're starting to put it this way, if we do like we said, and we started the prequel trilogy here rather than episode 1, then your first episode you can do about Anakin guarding Padme in whatever context you want to tell that first story. Episode 2, you can center on him and his mother reuniting and her dying. That's a big deal. And they just like get into it as a side story, like in like, at the hour and a half mark of this film. Like, whoa, slow down, pump the brakes. How many locations and things can we take in here? It's very overstuffed.
No, I don't disagree. I think, and again, in the last episode, we kind of, put forward the question, how would you fix these films if you had to keep the basic structure intact? I think with this, again, you have to give them something to do during Anakin and Padme, something to do during those scenes. That's not just really creepy stalker dialogue.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think what you do is you have Jango going after Padme. And so that enables you, like, Obi-Wan can still investigate the Separatists, which brings him to Dooku, and that still all plays out the same. But then you still have these scenes, if you have Jango going after Padme and Anakin having to protect her, you have events that can facilitate a romance like that.
Sure.
You have that peril that can often facilitate that kind of relationship, and it alleviates you from just minutes in a room with just these two talking, which is this film, among any other of the Star Wars films, shows that while he is a good storyteller, he is not a very good director. Because just the talent that he has in those scenes between Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen, and that is what they are turning in as a performance. It's like, what are you doing here?
I did make notes that, yeah, you're exactly right. These performances are terrible. However, in these terrible performances, there is a common denominator. In scenes of Obi-Wan and Anakin, and of Padme and Anakin, two of those people might be able to act, but only one of them is showing it, and it's not the one that we're supposed to care about. in either case, Hayden Christensen might be a good actor, but he sure doesn't show it in these movies at all. Ewan McGregor, bless his heart, does a pretty masterful job with what he's given to make it decent. This is a compliment. I am complimenting these movies. He's given nothing, and he manages to evoke some level of like, yeah, I like that. I like that guy. Thumbs up, Obi-Wan. Padme, like, say what you want about Natalie Portman or whatever, but like, she's alongside this guy in this scene, and she's got garbage dialogue, and yet when she talks, it's like, all right, now it's not great, but she's putting in a performance, and I'm picking it up. Meanwhile, man, I don't know what George told Hayden Christensen to do on set, but this dude is a black hole. He is a black hole of charisma and of talent in this movie. Okay, mind you, he might be a perfectly talented actor and other stuff, but my God, Everyone else was given crap to work with, and they managed to, give me something. This dude only inspires my ire. He only draws my ire. So, there.
Well, I think you also have to remember and take into consideration these three actors kind of where they are in their careers at this point. Ewan McGregor and Natalie Portman, both very established, many films under their belts,
Yeah.
and they've had time to hone their craft. Hayden Christensen, this is I think his only second or third film, maybe. And so he may have not felt like either he doesn't necessarily, I'm sure he's smart enough to know that he's not being able to give his interpretation of the performance, or just is in a position where he doesn't want to rock the boat and potentially make a bad name for himself in Hollywood so that he doesn't get hired.
Was it you who told me that he tried to do more and George kept talking him back?
It wasn't me, but it doesn't surprise me. Because again, I've seen him in other things and he's fantastic. So that definitely would not surprise me at all. So I think I'm hoping, anyway, one thing we can agree on is the climactic battle in this on Geonosis once the clones show up.
Yeah.
I could tell by your tone right now we're not going to agree on it. I thought it was pretty awesome. It's really just like it's a Star Wars battle that we haven't seen yet to this point. Like, we've seen concepts of what ground warfare is like in this universe in Empire Strikes Back. This is that, like, ratchet up to 1,000. So tell me why it's bad.
It's a video game cutscene between two factions I don't care about. It's just stuff happening.
Okay.
I don't know why. I don't know why it's happening, but it is, and it's just it's a PlayStation 2 game. I have no investment in it. I have no stake in it, so I don't care about it. So I can't muster up much of an emotion for it. George couldn't pay for one Stormtrooper costume. That took me out of it too, by the way. They're all computer generated. And it shows. Like, it's not even subtle. I know there's nobody standing there. They're all fake. All of them. The one scene where Padme falls out of the ship and she rolls down the sandhill or whatever, and then, like, a clone trooper runs up to her, and you can see the footprints being made digitally after the digital dude. Oh, dude, just watch. You'll see it. It will break your brain because you can see, like, how fake it is. It's so bad. It's just so bad. It's so bad. It's just so stupid. I don't know. And, like, I don't know. It's just bad. I can't, like, it's just all bad. I have no stake. I don't know what's going on or why. You're using the clone troopers as, like, they're the good guy army, but, like, come on, man. I saw the original trilogy. They're the bad guys. You're trying to, like, pull a fast one on me, or, like, oh no, this is how it kind of started. And it's like, yeah, but you know what? My brain knows that they're the bad guys, and this is weird. This is just a weird. It's just narratively strange to me to see this. There's no emotional heft to that last act. It's just stuff happening. They want me to tell you, they want me to think that there's emotional heft to it, but it's hinged on the love story, which again is, flat. And then narratively speaking, I still don't understand who the Trade Federation is, what their motive. Like, it just, all of this is very murky. Separatists and yada yada and the bug people now. Like, who are the bug people? It's a good thing they're bug people, so our Jedi heroes can murder them in mass, and we don't have to care about it too much. Because if they were humans, it would be a little weird, right? That bothered me a little bit. I don't know. It's just all so bad. Maybe if any of the character moments landed, maybe I could feel something more about this, but like it just all is so nebulous to me. It's just stuff happening. I just don't have a reason to care about any of it. It's just events on screen. And I'm supposed to like watch it and have an opinion. I don't know. I don't. It's just stuff. Computerized stuff. These effects do not hold up whatsoever. Like, at all. Episode 1 has stuff that holds up. This one, no. No. It does not. I don't know.
Well, I think that about puts cherry on top of the sundae.
Yay. I have some fun notes, though.
I'm sure people will look forward to reading them.
Like the bug people. Did they design the Death Star, Carl?
I'm assuming it was a conglomerate design.
Is Jyn Erso's father a bug person, is what I'm asking.
No, it's not a bug person.
Is Mads Mikkelsen a bug person? We need to know answers. I want answers. I demand answers.
All right. Believe we're clocking in now at
this is
2 hours.
This is no. We're just under 2 right now. So let's wrap it up.
Sorry. So we're going to wrap it up. That brings to close our discussion of Attack of the Clones. We will, schedule's long, be back in a couple weeks for Revenge of the Sith. If you would like to contact us, reach out to us at any of our social media outlets, you can do so at the following.
Tell me how wrong I am.
You can contact us on Twitter. Follow us at Devil's Due Pod. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Devil's Due Pod. You can email us at thedevilsdupod@gmail.com, or you can find all these resources available to you on our website, thedevilsdupodcast.com. Drew, any closing thoughts?
I didn't even get into how this movie completely destroys the Jedi and their philosophy and what you believed about it forever. Didn't even talk about that. But that's another day, another time. Maybe my notes. You can look it up. And to clarify, I'm not even that mad about this movie. I was for a long time. I don't even care anymore. I'm so over it. It's just it's just a thing that exists. It's sad. It's a sad thing. Didn't have to be this way, but it is now. And we live with that. And I'm still alive. I'm still healthy. Hanging in there. I'm good. We're fine here, Carl. How are you?
Oh, we're all fine and dead. And we have a whole nother prequel to go, so I'm sure we'll be able to dive.
I can't wait.
Portrayal of the Jedi. Until then, folks, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
We do, actually.
Hope you stay safe, stay healthy, stay home.
Yeah. Follow your reopening phase plans, kids.
Maybe just kind of stay home a little bit longer beyond the whole phase 1, 2, 3 thing. Let's just kind of wait till this thing is done.
Be smart. Like Magneto said, in chess, the pawns go first.
All right, folks. Thank you again for joining us. Have a good night.